Sex appeal in ancient Japan was never built by chasing desire. It was built by mastering it. The men who carried the deepest attraction were not loud, expressive, or desperate to be noticed. They were quiet, contained. Their presence settled a room before they spoke. Their bodies were trained to hold stillness, and their minds were trained to govern impulse. Desire followed them because they did not follow desire. In the classical Japanese understanding of the body and spirit, attraction was not cosmetic. It was energetic. A man was compelling when his inner state was ordered. Chaos leaked outward. Order radiated. This is why the samurai, the monk, and the court noble all trained the same foundations long before physical intimacy ever entered the picture. The first principle was restraint. Not repression, but containment. Ancient Japanese texts repeatedly warn that uncontrolled desire weakens the eyes, thins the voice, destabilizes posture, and scatters intention. A man who leaks desire through restless movement, nervous speech, or constant seeking loses gravity. Gravity is what draws others close. Restraint was trained through the body before the mind. The hips were kept aligned. The lower abdomen was engaged. Breath was drawn deep, slow, and silent. This region, known as the hara, was considered the seat of power. A man who breathed shallowly into the chest was considered unstable. A man who breathed into the belly was considered dangerous in the best sense. Calm, grounded, difficult to shake. Sex appeal emerged as a byproduct of this grounding. When breath slowed, the eyes softened. When the abdomen was strong, the spine lengthened naturally. When posture aligned, movement became economical. Nothing was wasted. Every gesture had purpose. Women noticed not because the man performed for them, but because his body communicated safety and command simultaneously. Intimacy in this tradition was not rushed. Speed was associated with immaturity. A man who hurried toward touch revealed hunger. Hunger repels. A man who could delay touch without tension demonstrated abundance. This created anticipation. Anticipation is the root of desire. Touch itself was trained indirectly. Hands were conditioned through sword work, calligraphy, and archery. Precision replaced force. Sensitivity replaced aggression. The same hands that could hold a brush lightly for hours could later touch a lover without grasping, without taking. Ancient Japanese intimacy emphasized presence over performance. Being fully there was considered more arousing than any technique. The eyes were perhaps the most guarded tool. Staring was considered crude. Avoidance was considered weak. The cultivated gaze rested gently, briefly, then withdrew. This rhythm communicated interest without need. In intimate moments, the eyes did not search for validation. They received. This made the other feel seen rather than consumed. Voice training followed similar principles. Volume was moderate. Pace was slow. Silence was used deliberately. Words were chosen sparingly. In intimacy, excessive talking was discouraged. Sound was allowed to arise naturally but not theatrically. Authentic breath and genuine response carried more weight than exaggerated expression. Sex appeal, then, was not an act. It was a consequence of disciplined living, embodied calm, and emotional restraint. The body became attractive because it was governed. Desire grew because it was not spilled everywhere. The ancient Japanese man did not try to be appealing. He became someone whose presence invited closeness. This foundation must be understood before any deeper methods are introduced. Without restraint, intimacy becomes noise. Without grounding, attraction collapses into anxiety. The ancient path begins here, with the body settled, the breath deep, the desire contained, but alive. Once restraint and grounding were established, ancient Japanese training moved toward refinement of sensation. Sex appeal was deepened not by increasing stimulation, but by sharpening perception. The more precisely a man could feel his own body, the more precisely he could respond to another. This sensitivity began with solitude. Periods of intentional solitude were prescribed, not as withdrawal from life, but as recalibration. During these periods, sexual release was minimized or delayed, not permanently, but strategically. The purpose was to thicken desire rather than drain it. Desire, when conserved, was believed to circulate through the body instead of exiting it. This circulation created warmth in the lower abdomen, steadiness in the limbs, and clarity in the eyes. Breath was the primary mechanism for this circulation. Slow inhalation through the nose, extended exhalation through relaxed lips, and brief pauses after each breath trained the nervous system to remain calm under internal pressure. As arousal arose, breath slowed further. This prevented tension from accumulating in the chest or jaw. A man who could remain relaxed while aroused was considered highly cultivated. The spine played a critical role. Ancient posture training emphasized elongation rather than stiffness. The crown of the head lifted gently upward, while the tailbone sank naturally downward. This alignment allowed sensation to move freely along the spine instead of stagnating. When desire rose, it did not explode outward. It traveled upward, spreading presence throughout the body. This created a subtle intensity that others could feel without understanding why. Intimate closeness was approached gradually. The ancient method discouraged immediate escalation. Distance was closed slowly, allowing anticipation to build layer by layer. Even sitting beside someone was considered a meaningful stage. The awareness of shared breath, shared warmth, and shared silence was cultivated before touch ever occurred. When touch did occur, it was unhurried. Hands rested before they moved. Fingers waited before they explored. The intention was not to excite quickly, but to attune. Touch followed the rhythm of breath, not impulse. This created trust. Trust allowed deeper arousal. The body responded not to pressure, but to permission. The pelvis was trained to remain relaxed. Excess tension in this region was believed to dull sensation and shorten endurance. Gentle pelvic mobility exercises, often disguised as stretches or martial training, increased circulation without agitation. This allowed intimacy to unfold without urgency. Eye contact during intimacy followed the same principles as daily interaction, but with greater depth. Eyes met briefly, withdrew, then returned. This rhythm prevented overwhelm and sustained connection. Continuous staring was avoided. Soft attention was favored over intensity. This made the experience expansive rather than consuming. Silence was honored. Silence allowed sensation to speak. Words were used sparingly, and only when they arose naturally. Forced verbalization was discouraged. Authentic sound, breath, or quiet acknowledgement carried more weight than scripted expression. Emotionally, the ancient method emphasized non-attachment to outcome. The goal was not conquest, climax, or validation. The goal was mutual presence. When outcome disappeared, anxiety disappeared. When anxiety disappeared, sex appeal intensified. The other felt free rather than managed. This is where modern misunderstanding often arises. Ancient Japanese sex appeal was not about technique. It was about state. A man who could remain grounded, restrained, sensitive, and present created an atmosphere in which desire unfolded naturally. He did not lead by force. He led by steadiness. This level of intimacy required patience. It could not be rushed, but once cultivated, it transformed every interaction. Desire became quieter but stronger. Attraction became slower but deeper. The man became someone whose presence invited closeness without demand. After restraint and sensitivity were developed, ancient Japanese training moved into mastery of inner rhythm. Sex appeal at this stage was no longer something a man tried to display. It emerged as a byproduct of internal coherence. Everything moved at the same tempo. Breath, posture, gaze, movement, and emotional response were synchronized. This harmony was deeply attractive because it signaled safety and confidence without performance. One of the core practices was learning to delay internal reaction. Most people react immediately to stimulus. A glance triggers tension, touch triggers urgency, desire triggers pursuit. The ancient method interrupted this chain. When stimulus arose, the practitioner learned to pause internally before responding. This pause created choice. Choice created composure. Composure created allure. This training began outside intimacy. When spoken to, the practitioner did not rush to answer. When challenged, he did not rush to defend. When praised, he did not rush to inflate. This emotional regulation carried directly into intimate situations. A man who did not grasp emotionally also did not grasp physically. This restraint was felt as maturity. Another method focused on energy conservation through daily conduct. Excessive speech, nervous movement, and constant stimulation were seen as leaks. The more energy leaked throughout the day, the less remained for depth at night. Therefore, simplicity was encouraged. Movements were efficient. Speech was intentional. Attention was not scattered across endless distractions. This conservation sharpened presence. Physical training supported this principle. Slow, controlled movements strengthened deep muscles rather than superficial ones. Walking was deliberate. Sitting was stable. Standing carried weight evenly through the feet. This grounded physicality translated into intimacy as steadiness. The body did not tremble with need. It responded with assurance. Touch at this stage became more communicative than exploratory. The hands were trained to listen. Subtle shifts in breath, temperature, or muscle tone were noticed. Pressure adjusted accordingly. This responsiveness made the other feel seen rather than handled. Feeling seen is one of the deepest sources of attraction. The ancient texts emphasized that endurance was not built by force, but by relaxation. Tension shortened experience. Relaxation extended it. The jaw, shoulders, and abdomen were continuously softened. Even during heightened arousal, the breath remained slow. This allowed sensation to spread rather than spike. Pleasure became fuller, not sharper. Psychologically, the practitioner was taught to remain unattached to self-image. Trying to appear skilled, powerful, or impressive created anxiety. Anxiety disrupted rhythm. Instead, the focus remained on shared experience. When self-consciousness disappeared, authenticity emerged. Authenticity created magnetism. There was also a strong emphasis on aftercare, long before the term existed. Remaining present after intimacy, without immediate distraction or withdrawal, deepened trust. Trust fed desire. Desire fed future intimacy. This cycle reinforced itself naturally. Importantly, the ancient method did not isolate sexuality from character. Integrity, patience, and reliability were considered essential components of sex appeal. A man whose word was steady and whose actions matched his intentions carried an attractiveness that could not be imitated through technique alone. Over time, these practices reshaped identity. Sex appeal was no longer something to be activated. It became a baseline state. The man moved through the world with quiet confidence, capable of intimacy without hunger and closeness without dependency. This was considered the mark of true cultivation. Attraction without chasing. Desire without desperation, presence without force. The final stage of the ancient Japanese method was integration. Without integration, all previous training collapsed into fragments. Sex appeal was never meant to be a separate skill, used only in intimacy. It was meant to be the natural outcome of how a man lived, thought, moved, and related to the world. The first advice at this stage was consistency. Whatever calm, restraint, and presence were cultivated in solitude had to remain intact in daily life. A man who was composed only in private but scattered in public lost credibility at a subtle level. People sense inconsistency instinctively. True attraction grows when inner state remains stable across environments. Daily routine mattered. Waking and sleeping at irregular hours disrupted internal rhythm. Excessive stimulation late at night dulled sensitivity. The ancient advice was simple. Rise early when possible. Eat moderately. Move the body daily, not to exhaust it, but to keep circulation alive. A regulated life created regulated desire. Food was approached with awareness. Overeating was discouraged, especially heavy foods that created lethargy, not because pleasure was forbidden, but because dullness reduced presence. Presence was the foundation of appeal. When the body felt clean and responsive, confidence followed naturally. Mental diet was equally important. Constant exposure to explicit imagery, aggressive entertainment, or endless comparison weakened inner stability. Desire became noisy and impatient. The ancient advice was to guard what entered the mind. What a man consumed internally shaped how he carried himself externally. Another critical advice concerned intention. Sexual energy was not something to suppress or indulge blindly. It was something to direct. When desire arose, it was acknowledged without panic. Breath slowed, posture remained open. The sensation was allowed to circulate rather than dominate. This created a calm intensity that others perceived as depth. In relationships, patience was emphasized repeatedly. Rushing intimacy weakened its impact. Allowing space between encounters strengthened anticipation. Anticipation was seen as one of the most powerful amplifiers of attraction. The ancient method valued what was delayed more than what was taken quickly. Communication followed the same principle. Speak clearly. Speak honestly. Do not over-explain. Do not perform vulnerability. Share when sharing is natural. Silence when silence feels right. This balance created emotional safety, which deepened intimacy far more than excessive disclosure. The practitioner was also advised to maintain purpose outside intimacy. A life centered only on attraction eventually repelled. A life oriented toward meaning made attraction secondary and therefore stronger. When intimacy was an addition rather than a compensation, it felt nourishing instead of needy. Finally, humility was considered essential. Arrogance disrupted sensitivity. Sensitivity was the heart of sex appeal. The more attuned a man became to others, the less he needed to assert himself. Attraction flowed toward him rather than away from him. When all of these elements aligned, sex appeal ceased to be something that required effort. It became a quiet signal embedded in posture, timing, and presence. People felt relaxed around him, drawn without pressure, interested without confusion. This was the ancient aim, not conquest, not performance, but embodied calm that made closeness feel safe, deep, and inevitable. Sexual appeal is not something you perform, it is something that leaks out of your state. The first secret is contained energy. People are drawn to those who do not spill everything at once. When your desire is disciplined, when your attention is not desperate, it creates tension in the air. Not frustration, but curiosity. Attraction grows when energy is held, not chased. The second secret is comfort with your own desire. Many people either suppress it or overexpress it. Both are felt immediately. The most appealing state is quiet acceptance. You are aware of your attraction, but you are not ruled by it. This creates a sense of safety mixed with intensity. That combination is powerful. The third secret is slow presence. Sexual appeal increases when you slow your movements, your speech, your reactions. Slowness signals confidence and control. It gives the other person time to feel what is happening. Fast behavior feels anxious. Calm pacing feels intentional. The fourth secret is deep attention, not staring, not scanning, but genuine focus. When someone feels that your attention is steady and unfragmented, their nervous system relaxes. Relaxation is what allows attraction to deepen. Tension blocks desire. Safety opens it. The fifth secret is subtle leadership. Not dominance, not control. Direction. Knowing when to speak, when to pause, when to change the atmosphere. People are drawn to those who can guide an interaction without forcing it. The sixth secret is physical awareness. How you sit, how you stand, how you breathe. Sexual appeal increases when your body is grounded, relaxed, and responsive. Shallow breathing kills attraction. Deep, calm breathing amplifies it. The seventh secret is emotional steadiness. Mood swings, over-validation, or emotional hunger drain appeal. Emotional self-sufficiency creates magnetism. When someone senses that you enjoy connection but do not depend on it, attraction grows naturally. The eighth secret is silence. Silence is not emptiness. It is space. Space allows imagination. Imagination fuels desire far more than words ever could. The ninth secret is respectful restraint. Knowing what not to say. Knowing what not to do. Restraint makes every action carry weight. When you do less, what you do matters more. The final secret is this: sexual appeal is strongest when the other person feels chosen, not needed. When your presence says, "I am complete on my own, and I am choosing to be here with you," that is the state people remember. That is the state that creates longing. That is the state that turns attraction into connection.